How you doing, mi gente? This is Peter Blade. Welcome to You Know Your Puerto Rican If on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Now, I'm here to talk about today's topic, which is economic prosperity. What does that mean, and what does it mean to us? Economic prosperity means exactly what it is. It means prospering on the strength of your economic value, strength, or structure, right? Prosperity means that you've reached the goal, went over your bar, and still striving while you're helping the next person up. All right? And I'm here to tell you firsthand, 100%, that it's something that our Puerto Rican people did not do and continue not to do. Why do I say that? I say that we as Puerto Ricans failed to support the economic prosperity of our peoples coming up by not supporting businesses besides a local food truck or food stand or something, or somebody that's doing lower than you. Yeah, you would support. But how many people actually support somebody that's thriving their own? You know what I mean? How many people goes up into a Puerto Rican-owned bank and push their money there? Economic prosperity brings the prosperity of the people, of the generation, of the migration. I haven't seen our peoples prosper since the late 80s, to be honest, in New York City. I don't know about these other countries, these other counties, these other states. But in New York City, the demise of the Puerto Rican migration started when we stopped supporting each other, supporting each other's values of businesses. Like, be real. We all know that your worst enemy is your friend or your own kind. But it doesn't have to be that way. Our story started with the Spanish colonization of Puerto Rico, which started around 1508. 1508, the Spaniards, declared land, set up rules, set up districts, etc. When you colonize something, colonization is just another sweet word for the takeover. When you colonize something, you take it over and you set up your tribe. Your tribe, they prosper, they build, and they multiply, setting more tribes. When one is colonized by another state or county, Puerto Rico, for instance, being colonized by Spain, first of all, the first thing you start losing is your language. Yeah. People didn't always speak Spanish in Puerto Rico. In fact, the English language is all but lost, the Indian language. And the reason I say Indian language, and I hate using that language, I'd rather just use the term Arawak Taino, because the reason why we even refer to the indigenous people as Indians today is because upon Christopher Columbus' journey, while he was funded by the King and Queen of Spain, going back there, his pitch was, it wasn't to go and discover another land and go take over. His pitch was to find a better navigational route so that they may be able to do trade with India. So upon discovering, again, America, according to his eyes, he actually thought that he was in India, and he referred to everybody that was in the land as Indians until, more communication went out, so forth and so forth. But this is why we call them Indians, because Christopher Columbus's journey and his ships and his navigators kept a tight logbook of everything that went on. So that when they went back to Spain with the king and queen all pissed because they never hit India, they had to show proof of where they were. So they brought with them Indians, gold, and a whole new set of plans of opportunities, which at that time, the king and queen just, I think they actually did throw him in jail or something like that, but they were so pissed. He didn't make the other journeys, but this is why we call them Indians today. But the first thing you do upon colonizing the peoples is you strip them of their language. Now, Puerto Rico had Taino Arawak Indians speaking that language. Spaniards came. It takes roughly about 100 years to erase a language from your mental dictionary and from society, right? So, about 100 years in, everybody on the island speaks Spanish, right? So now we have about another maybe 200 years or so of speaking Spanish, and we have maybe roughly, when was it? Let's say close to 100 years that English, that the United States became part of Puerto Rico, which was in the year 1898. So from 1898 till now, from 1898 to 1998, that's 100 years. Little by little, the language is being whitewashed or English washed out of existence. Now, we all know that the Spanish language is more than just Puerto Rico. Had it just been Puerto Rico, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. Of course, we got the entire South America that speaks Spanish. But what I'm trying to say is that one of the first things that the colonizers come for is your language. All right? The dominant language becomes the language of the dominant colonizers. In Puerto Rico's case, it's English. We see English in the schools and whatnot. It's becoming to a point where probably Spanish is the second language. ESL, remember back in the 80s and 90s when ESL, maybe now, maybe even, I don't know, was a thing in school? English as a second language? How about Spanish as a second language? You know what I mean? But anyway, the next thing that the colonizers take from you is the support of your people, because your people become non-existent. So it becomes a race of setting up your tribe. Colonizers come, colonize everything. You no longer have access to your own little indigenous ways, your histories, your agriculture. That being stripped, because now you don't get avocados, now you get peaches. Just saying. Another thing the colonizers take from you is your economic prosperity, meaning you have no economic power. This is why I respect a lot of groups or a lot of social movements in forever times, because the first thing you got to do for your people to be strong is set up that economic stronghold. You know, when you dominate the jobs in your area, in your town, who has control, who's in bosses, who's in positions to hire people. That becomes very important for your people, because yes, people do, even though you see in the applications that it is equal opportunity, that is bullcrap. Everybody knows there's favors here, there's racism, and even prejudice. You lose control of the hiring and the firing. You lose control of your economic stronghold. If you're not out here making boss moves, then you're done. And that's one thing that I notice in NYC. The Puerto Ricans are not dominant in the workforce. It used to be. It used to be a point where people needed English and Spanish as a translator in between. It was good. It was Puerto Ricans were nice to be handy. You know, it was good to have around because they can reach people on two languages. And but now we have a whole bunch of Latin groups that has prospered the economic way in New York City, while we have failed. We failed ourselves. We failed our people. We didn't hold our people down. We didn't support their businesses. We knocked our neighbors down. We fought with them. We've made tricks on them. We've damaged their property. They've damaged ours. We have done nothing but hurt ourselves at the account of our colonizers. And that is how we lost a stronghold in economic prosperity. Dropped down the levels. The bar that we set, that our parents and our grandparents set back in those 40s, 50s, and 60s, that high bar that they set was just tossed to the ground. There is no bar to grab. We've lost all sight and all respect of our economic development in New York City. Kudos to the Dominicans, kudos to the Mexicans, kudos to the Africans who've seen the opportunity and are taking a better hold, grasp, and are perspiring over the opportunities that we let go. We failed to realize that at one point we had the economic jobs on hold, on lockdown. And what we did was we abused it. We didn't bring anybody in. We didn't have faith in our families, in our friends. Actually, we chose to keep them out of our businesses because we thought that that was the way. Everywhere you go, your family's your worst enemy. Don't trust your family and businesses. No. You see these other people. You see the way these other Latin cliques move. Everything. Family is everything. And they perspire. They prosper. We was well informed. And that becomes a lack of trust. We didn't trust our people, our family members. We never looked at them as something valuable, as a gem. We look at them as disposable or somebody you had to get away from. You don't see that in other Latin cultures. They stick tight. At one point, we had the black folks envying us of how we move, how we stuck together. They looked at us from far, but they didn't see what was going on in the inside, how we was doing ourselves. And now there's other Latin groups that are to envy because of how they're moving and how they're bringing economic prosperity into their circle and into their generations to come. Something we failed to do, something we let go, something nobody pointed out. So with that, I'm going to sign out. This is Peter Blade. You know you're Puerto Rican if on all platforms. Boricua Stand Up on a podcast. Saying good night.